This is the DSEI Arms Fair in the Excel Centre in East London, and on one level it's just completely amazing because it's huge. There are more than 1,600 stalls, about 20,000 people coming here every day, and there's just every weapon you can imagine. There are drones, there are tanks, there are missiles, there are robots, planes, submersibles. And the war in Ukraine has given it a particular sense of urgency, of course, because not only are we seeing those sorts of weapons being used to devastating effect every day, there's also a sense among many of the allies, NATO allies, Ukraine's NATO allies in the West, that they need to upgrade, to invest, and to understand how these sorts of weapons can defend themselves. I mean, there's also something deeply unnerving, and if I'm honest, a little bit gross about this, because, you know, we hear words like lethality, but actually, you know, a lot of what this kit here is designed to do is kill people. It tears flesh from bones, it destroys homes, it makes orphans, but, you know, that is the horrific nature of war. That is the horrific nature of what we're seeing unfolding in Ukraine. We're going to have a look around a couple of the stalls to see some of the equipment that is making a difference in Ukraine, see some of the kit that the British Army has sent, or rather the British government has sent there, and give you a sense of what this fair is all about. So we've come to the Ukraine stand at the DSEI Arms Fair, and what's really interesting here, of course, is that the weapons here are, what, as the Ukrainians say, combat proven. Now, these are the weapons that are making a really big difference on the front line every day in the war in Ukraine. It won't surprise you that they've got surveillance drones. Further along here, they've got some of their electronic warfare kit. Now, this is about jamming drones. So the drones they're using surveillance, the kit they're using to try and knock out Russian drones. This, what looks like a sort of slightly unusual rifle here called the Skywiper, sending sort of complicated radiological electronic warfare beams in the direction of a device, be it a drone or a loitering munition, another really a kind of drone. Further along, we have the Magura maritime drone. Now this is just a model, but these drones, we've seen the footage filmed from these cameras as they zoom across the top of the Black Sea and explode into the flanks of Russian warships and indeed into the side of a Russian cargo ship carrying fuel to Russian troops in Crimea. So again, another weapon we've seen making a big difference in Ukraine. And again, bigger drones, that's a Punisher, carrying a munition under its fuselage. And over here at this table, the much smaller sort of 3D printed carbon fiber one-way attack drones, often referred to as FPV, first-person view drones, because the operator sees the target it's going to hit from that front-mounted camera as it's racing towards, often racing towards a vehicle on the move. And indeed, in this box here, we've got some of those videos that have become so ubiquitous on the internet over the course of this war, of these sorts of munitions in action. I'm not sure if I said this before. One of the messages that the staff here on the Ukraine stand have given us, of course, is that these weapons are not available for export because Ukraine is very clear it needs all the weapons it can get its hands on at the moment for its fight against Russia. But the reason they're here is because they want to partner with other companies and other countries to try and manufacture these weapons abroad, potentially for export down the line in the future, but more immediately now to try and bring them back into Ukraine to arm its troops in its fight against Russia. And over here, there's a British company making loitering munitions, the sort of things we sometimes call suicide or kamikaze drones. Now, this company, Overwatch, makes a device called the Folos. Now, last year, Boris Johnson announced that Britain was sending 1,000 loitering munitions to Ukraine, but he never revealed what kind of munitions they were. We're able now to reveal that it was, in fact, these devices. This is a British manufacturing success story. This device has a range of about 3 kilometers. It has a loiter time of about 40 minutes. And anecdotally, the manufacturers here have said that it has been used successfully in Ukraine. They're trying to ramp up orders. They said the Ministry of Defense really leaned in that rush, in that urgent rush to get munitions to Ukraine, especially in the first few months, the first year of the war. This company was a beneficiary when the MOD placed a large and urgent order. They manufactured through the night to try and meet that order as quickly as possible, and now they're looking at ways to evolve it, to develop it, to take lessons from Ukraine, increase its range, look at ways that they can make more of the parts in the UK, manufacture the explosives in the UK. It carries a 1.5 kilogram warhead, but for the time being, what we know that this is one of the British-made loitering munitions currently in use against Russian soldiers, against Russian forces in Ukraine. So much of this show is about different ways to kill people. On my left, they've got some sniper rifles. Over there, they've got drones. Behind me, all manner of missiles on that side, and here, a range of assault rifles and pistols, all different ways of killing people. But that's not what this show is all about. It's also about ways to try and save life. And this is really interesting. This is an Austrian company called Ulbricht, which makes helmets. Now, their helmets, they claim, are the only ones in the world that will stop stop a bullet from an assault rifle. Now, if you come over here, these are the sort of standard helmets that a lot of armies, indeed a lot of journalists use in hostile environments. Now, this one has been peppered with shrapnel. It successfully stopped shrapnel from a grenade blast, and this is the model of the head that was inside it. But when it was shot with a 9mm bullet, that's the sort of bullet that you'd fire from a pistol, hit there, the bullet was stopped, but the pressure sort of creates such an indentation on the helmet that it was transferred and creates quite a serious indent in the wearer's skull. Now, that, we understand, would have been fatal. Now, a far more dramatic demonstration of that is this helmet here. This was shot with a .556 caliber bullet. That's the sort of bullet that would be fired from a British Army SA-80 or indeed any NATO standard assault rifle. And it's very clear what would have happened to the user in that scenario.
Yeah, different about an Ulbricht helmet is that we produce our helmets by titanium and polyethylene, the only ones to do that. Now, that's just a question of material. What does it do as in protection for the user? You see here one of our test heads, and this side of the head has been hit by a 9mm, and it would, even though the helmet stopped the bullet, transform so much energy to the brain that the wearer would be dead. Now, with our titanium polyethylene helmets, this would be the result of the same shot. So this might be a hangover, and this is no hangover ever.
The helmets that Ulbrichts make are different. They're made from a combination of polyethylene and titanium. Now, this feels incredibly light. It's also visibly thinner than some of the helmets. This would stop a 9mm bullet fired from a pistol. But with this additional piece of polyethylene velcroed onto the sort of forehead frontal lobe protection, that would also, we understand, stop the bullet from an assault rifle. Now, these are one variety, different levels of protection, different cutaways, depending on whether the user needs to wear ear defenders or have increased or more protection or increased situational awareness. And over here at the far end of the stand, these are significantly heavier and significantly thicker. But these helmets, Ulbricht say, would stop a bullet, an assault rifle bullet, fired from any direction at the wearer's head. This is the stand of a British company called OneWeb, which has a constellation of more than 600 low Earth orbit satellites in space. Now, interestingly, they've revealed to me that they are planning to open up that constellation of communication satellites to Ukraine to allow Ukraine's armed forces to better communicate on the battlefield. And that's important. Why? Well, because up until now, Ukraine has been relying very, very heavily on Elon Musk's Starlink network. Now, the people here won't say a bad word about Elon Musk, but in Ukraine, he's become a very controversial figure because he turned off the Starlink network in particular areas, particularly around Crimea, at absolutely vital times for Ukraine. When they were carrying out attacks against Russian shipping in occupied Crimea, the satellite communications that they were using to communicate with their drones were cut, and that meant their mission failed. OneWeb is about to step in. They are about to start supporting Ukraine. They won't say exactly when, and they won't say exactly how, but this constellation of satellites, more than 600 satellites, is about to play its part, a British company stepping up to help Ukraine.